Thank you so much for joining us today for another useful noon hour. Today, my guest is Mike Wen. He is the manager of the Employment Council at WorkingNB. I'm really glad that he accepted my invitation. I have to say, Mike, you're awesome replying to emails. You're my favorite, I have to say. And thank you so much for being here today. I know there are lots of questions and concerns from newcomers, and employment is a concern for everybody, but it is especially with newcomers where they're more vulnerable than other sectors for sure. We just want to talk and chat, you and I today, and understand more about WorkingNB, maybe what you do, what your whole team is doing, especially under COVID, and the services that you offer. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me back. I wasn't sure after our last useful noon hour if you'd ever have me back. So, it's good.
No, absolutely not. Actually, I have, I still remember the very first useful noon hour we ever did, right in the middle of the pandemic when everything shut down, was with you, Mike, and you put me at ease, and it was really great. We had tons and tons of questions from people about like the CERB and all that, and employment. You were absolutely gracious, and I really, it was actually awesome. One of the most successful sessions we have done for sure, and very well needed at the time. And you stepped in to help, and I can't forget that.
No, it was my pleasure. And at that time, like you said, we were in the initial lockdown. There was all kinds of information coming out daily. Your head was spinning trying to keep
It was crazy, yeah.
Yeah, so I was glad. I learned a lot too doing it, because I had to look up a lot of those programs and get them straight in my head before I could present them.
And Lena sent you lots of questions.
That's right. Yeah. So it's great. So, but that's what partnerships and communication is all about, right? So if we can help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially in these trying times, it's even more important and more valuable for sure for clients.
Yeah. Because who would have thought a year later we'd still be here? At least we're going back to orange, but it'd be nice if we can get back to yellow and have a little more freedom, but it's nice that we're moving in the right direction.
Absolutely. Well, exactly. We're moving on the right direction. Yeah. We're not in the yellow yet, but we're moving in the right direction. And you're absolutely right. It's almost a year now, and we're still talking about it, and we're still under the COVID. Yeah, but that's okay. We're doing really well considering, and we're gonna do the best we can.
That's right.
And we're going to keep helping each other.
That's right. Correct.
Awesome.
Positive people will get through this. No problem.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thanks to you and your whole team for helping as well.
Well, we've got a great team here. WorkingNB's been open for the whole thing, as you know. So we still have, like in our region, we have 14 employment counselors ready to serve. We have 8 workforce consultants that are ready to help employers. So we're here, and everything basically starts with a conversation and reaching out to us.
Perfect. So let's understand more about what you do, so people will benefit from it. So when you say, like, of course you're still working even in the middle of the pandemic, you're meeting, and I guess you still are meeting people virtually, so that didn't stop.
No, that didn't stop.
Yeah, but what's the difference between the employment counselors and the others? Like, can you explain the difference? Like, who's what?
So basically, we kind of divide things up. It's one team, but really we kind of divide the workload up into 2 different parts. So we have our employment counselors, which mainly help individuals. And I'll get into a little bit more about what they do with individuals as we go on, but particularly for individual job seekers, people looking for career decision-making, to get skill enhancement, things like that. That's individual supports, and employment counselors are who you want to talk to. When it comes to employers, they work with our workforce consultants. So workforce consultants work with employers to help them with any human resource support services they might need. we're not saying we're experts in all things human resources, but if employers are struggling to find people, are struggling, maybe they don't have an HR plan themselves, maybe they don't have performance management plans, our workforce consultants can work with them or help them basically hire a consultant that can help them. So again, we're there to support employers with their needs as they work through the labor market.
Do you find that you receive lots of lots of people asking for help? What kind of employers? Like, is it like the big employers, or do you find it more with the smaller ones, maybe entrepreneurs, or how do you?
The whole gamut. So we work with everybody from our large employers around the city and surrounding area to the mom and pop shop. So basically, if there's a labor market need, if they're having some sort of need to kind of attract people, retain people, to work through human resource issues, we're there to help. And we're often one of the first places they come to get that help.
Oh, that's great. Do you have lots of newcomers, entrepreneur newcomers who reach out to you?
But we do, I mean, and it's growing more and more. So, and I think that's partly because of organizations like yourself and the YMCA Settlement Services. For years, WorkingNB had a really bad branding problem. Nobody knew who we were, right? I mean, employment counselors, what's that? Workforce consultant, no idea what that is. And everybody thought we were either working for Service Canada or some other provincial department. So over the last 3 years, big emphasis has been put on branding and about getting name recognition. So that's where they came up with WorkingNB. If you drive by one agar place, there's a big WorkingNB sign now on the front door, which is great. But we're also kind of narrowing down what we do. And that's why I sort of talked about us having 3 clients. We have individuals, employers, and the labor market itself. And the more we get that brand recognition name out there, the more people are coming to see us. So we are seeing more and more newcomers because now we're getting that name recognition. So people know if I'm looking for work, if I'm looking to open my business, if I'm looking to get support in my new business, I'm looking to go back to school, I'm not sure what I want to do, accreditation, things like that, I can come talk to an employment counselor or a workforce consultant who can help.
I didn't know that you, like, even if I'm just not sure what to do, and we get that a lot, especially with the newcomers where they come here, they have great experience from back home and they come here and they feel a little bit lost and they need some guidance. And there is some of them, they're willing to do another kind of certificate or what have you, but they don't know what, and they don't know,
right,
where to go. So you do that.
We do that, and we do that. I mean, we see it's not just newcomers; it's people all over the place, right? So if people come to us, let's talk about individuals, I guess. So we're kind of segueing there. So let's talk about that. So one of the things we can help people with is career decision making. So how do I figure out what I want to do? The skills I have right now and the experience I have right now, what can I do with that? Are there employers out there looking for people with my skills and my experience? I don't have the skills or experience. Maybe there's a skills gap. I've always wanted to be a nurse, but I have never gone into nursing. I want to be an LPN, a licensed practical nurse, but I don't have the skills. We can help people figure out where they can get those skills, for example, in DCC. And we have programs in place to help cover the costs, not all the costs, but some of the costs of going back to school. So when people come in to meet with an employment counselor, the first thing an employment counselor would do is what we call an employability assessment. And that's a fancy word for saying we're going to ask you all kinds of questions about who you are, where you went to school, what's your level of training, what experience you've had with jobs, where you're at in your life, because a single mom with 3 kids is not in the same place, for example, as an 18-year-old at high school. So we've got to look at the whole complete person. So with newcomers, we'd also be looking at who you're working with at the settlement agencies. Do you have everything in place that you need? Like, do you have a place to stay? Do you have the furnishings? Do you have something to eat? All those
essential needs.
Essential needs, right? So we partner with you guys a lot on those things to make sure that both sides of the client are being looked after. So for sure, a client that doesn't know what they want to do, we can help them with that. We can do skills assessments. We can do transferable skills assessments. And then we look at if there's a skills gap, what's the quickest way for them to achieve their goal, their career goal. And you and I were on a call the other day and this came up, and I always go back to it. our goal is not just to get people in any job out there that's where people are looking. We're looking to connect people with the right job for them. So it's really important for us to help people find a career. And we want to, when we're talking to them, we want to look at what we can do to develop what we call an employment action plan to help them achieve that goal and get their career. So whether that's going back to school or maybe, for example, the person comes and they do have the skills, they do have the training, but they can't make a connection with an employer. Employment counselors can go upstairs and talk to our workforce consultants and see if there are any employers out there with a need. And then we can actually help that person get a position with that employer and possibly even cover some of the costs, like maybe we pay their wages for 12 weeks or 26 weeks or whatever the case might be. It depends on the individual, it depends on the need. So somebody who's a recent graduate who's never worked in the field, maybe they need a little more time. Somebody has a lot of experience, but maybe just needs to make that connection. Maybe they only need 12 weeks.
And is that where you help with, like, do you do some kind of subsidy?
Yes, we basically have what we call the Workforce Connections Program, which is an investment. We don't refer to it as a subsidy. It's much like a subsidy, but we don't refer to it as that. We refer to it as an investment because we look at it as we're investing in the individual. So what we're saying to an employer is you have a need, you haven't been able to find the right person for the job. We have this candidate who has all the skills you're looking for, but maybe they don't have relevant work experience in Canada, maybe they're just a recent graduate, whatever the case might be, if you take him on, we'll help cover some of those initial costs of hiring and training and all those type of things, so that if he works out, you'll keep him, and it's a win-win situation. It basically all starts with that employability assessment. So as part of that, let's say you came in to see us and you said, I'm a recent graduate, here's my resume, I've got the skills, but I haven't been able to make a connection to the workforce. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at your resume, we're going to look at your cover letter, we're going to look at what you're doing to find work. A lot of times, and that's kind of getting into another thing we do, which is help clients with job search. A lot of times with job search, we find, for example, someone will put out 100 resumes, but they're not getting any back. It's probably because they're putting out the same resumes to all 100 employers instead of making those resumes unique to each employer. So we can work with them on that. So if they're getting an interview, but not getting the job, we often know it's something they're doing during the interview, that they're not selling themselves correctly, or they're making some sort of mistake that makes an employer say, oh, I'm just going to back away from this person. So we work with them on mock interviews, on job interview skills, how to prepare for behavioral interviews or straightforward situational interviews. We can help with all those things: resumes, cover letters, interview prep, networking. If we're doing those things and we see that the client is still not able to get work, then we could look at workforce connection and try to make an attachment to the employer. So sometimes people come in and they have an awesome resume. You talk to them, you realize that they're pretty good at selling themselves, like especially extroverts tend to be really good at selling themselves. So if the person comes in and there's no big red flag that says, oh, I know why this person is having a hard time finding work, we would go directly to making a referral to workforce connection. But it all depends on the individual. So every individual is different. Some might need a little bit of help with one thing, others might need less or more. And so we tailor the employment action plan to meet the individual. And the good thing about WorkingNB is that we're less concerned about policies and guidelines say that everybody has to follow the exact same path. We're more interested in building a rationale and decision-based employment action plan that fits the client. So again, I kind of go back to, it starts with a conversation. It just starts with making a connection with our office, getting in and talking to somebody face-to-face, whether you're an employer or an individual, and then we go from there depending on your needs.
Like you mentioned helping individuals with mocking interviews or resumes, or something's wrong with the resume or what have you. Is that the workroom part of your work? Where does the workroom falls? Like
So the workrooms are unique to Southern New Brunswick. So from Sussex to St. Stephen, we have workrooms. We have 8 of them. Yeah. We have one right here at our office. The workrooms are a partnership we have with Anglophone School District South. So that they kind of serve two purposes. One is that deliver labor market information and career guidance to high school students. Because we really strongly believe in in our region, in our Southwest region, that if we get to the kids early and teach them how to make a good career decision, teach them how to find work as they're coming out of high school, they're going to be in a much better position than if we wait till they're out of college or out of university or make the wrong choice and have to start all over. The other way the workrooms help us is they help adult populations. So any moms, dads, adults can go into the workrooms and get the same service that the high school kids can get. They work as a feeder system to us. So if somebody comes in, they don't know what decision they want to make, they can refer to us so that people can meet with an employment counselor. But we can also work with them to, for example, do resumes. So if you come in, you're looking for a resume.
You refer to them as well.
We do a lot of times, yes. So employment counselor is the ultimate one that's going to look at your resume and decide where it needs to be tweaked and stuff. But our workroom coordinators are in most cases, they're all accredited Canada national resume writers. So they're all basically taking courses in how to write a good resume and tailor that resume to the individual and to the job they're applying for. Because most times when people do a resume, they do one blanket resume and send it out without having researched the employer or something as simple as making sure all the terminology you use in your resume matches the terminology of the job posting, right? So even in the IT sector, for example, depending on which company you go to with IT, they're going to talk technical. The technical language is going to be a little different. So you want to make sure that your language is specific to that employer. So employment counselors and workrooms can help with that as well. But the workrooms are a great partnership for us because, like I said, it feeds into us very well. They see a lot of moms and dads and adult populations around the communities they serve in, and that feeds into us, and vice versa. We can draw on their expertise around resumes and cover letters and things like that to help us out.
Awesome. Like during COVID now, do you see there is a higher demand for WorkingNB and what you guys do and offer, or is it about the same?
You know what? That's in some ways it's very much the same because most of the schools are still going, for example. So anybody that's going to NBCC or Eastern College or Holland College or whatever the institution, UNB, whatever the institution might be, they're still being directed to come see us by those institutions because they may be eligible for what we call our training skills and development grant program, or they may be eligible to receive EI while going to school. So those institutions will always send folks our way just to make sure they're getting all the benefits they're eligible for or might be eligible for. So yeah, so that way the schools and everything are still open. They're all offering blended learning of some sort. So we're still like as far as people coming in, we're still seeing a lot of those. Job search has been down for sure. And I think that's just because people have a perception that maybe everything is shut down because we're orange or that, right? I think also that COVID relief plans, even though they're excellent and they help people through, they might not make people as, I don't want to say desperate, but as an urgent need to go find work right away. So we do have lots of employers out there that are still looking for folks. NBjobs.ca, for example, like I looked at it, I think it was yesterday afternoon, I took a quick peek and there were about 290 jobs on there. And that was ranged everywhere from your entry level, you know, like working as a clerk in a store, like one of the grocery stores, to high-end health field positions like nurses and LPNs. So it's the whole gamut of jobs. There's lots of jobs available. It's just making sure that people are matched with the right job.
How about magnets? I know you're using magnets. Do you feel there is a good amount of people that are using it or not really? Is it helping?
I think in Magnet they kind of branded Magnet now Job Match NB. So if you go to WorkingNB.ca, there's a link to Job Match NB, and it's Magnet. It's growing, but I think now that we've got some branding behind it, some literature behind it, it should grow more. So we're seeing employers more and more getting into that system, and we're seeing more and more job seekers. So every time, for example, somebody comes in and speaks to an employment counselor about job search, or anytime they have a client that's looking or getting ready to graduate, we encourage them to go on to Job Match NB and sign up, because it really is, you need both sides going at the same pace, because if we all just have job seekers, the employers are going to go, that's great, but the job seekers are going to go, there's only a few employers, right? And vice versa. So we've got to grow them steadily at the same time.
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Big push on that, but for sure, it's a platform developed by Ryerson University, as you know, because you guys use Align and some other things like that, which come from the same type of platform. It's a great platform. It can be so useful if we can get everybody on it and start using it to its full potential. So it's been rolling out for about a year now, but I think we're finally getting to the point where it's going to have some promotion behind it. And I'm hoping that it's going to continue to grow.
That's great. Yeah, and from our part, I always ask clients to go to Job Match and promote Magnet and all that, because like, yeah, you're saying like we have to have both, like the job seekers and the employer component, like growing at the same pace. Like I don't think there is one more important than the other.
No, there definitely isn't, because like you said, if the employers will leave in droves if there's nobody there looking for work, and just like the job seekers will say, well, why would I bother? There's no employers, right? So it's a hard sell unless we continue to populate both.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of, like you mentioned about nurses and all that, accreditation, do you take care of that as well? Like if I have a client who doesn't know what to do, let's say a nurse, for example, do I send them your way?
Yes, definitely send them our way. Now, I'll be totally honest, employment counselors are new to the whole accreditation, the whole method for getting accreditation. And in some ways, like for example, with nurse, it's a much more paved way. So for example, there's a fellow at our central office, or not our central office, he works for the Department of Health, Rob Porter, and he can kind of look at a nurse's credentials, see what they need to do to update those credentials to get recognized in Canada. He can put together a bit of a program for how the person can do that. So for things like nursing, we've kind of already seen a path forward. As other things come in, we're learning as we go. So, but we can be right there with the newcomer and say, okay, you know what? We've never gone down this path before, but you talk to some people in associations that look after that field. We'll make some calls to our universities and partners and things like that. And we'll see when we get back together if we can share some of that information and have a clear directive of which way to go. And I think the more employment counselors are involved and the more they go through that process, the better they'll get at it, so that when the second person comes in with the same type of background looking for accreditation, we'll have a much clearer answer of how they can move forward. But it's definitely an area that WorkingNB is looking into and trying to get better at. So it's not just our region, it's every region. And I know I can call my counterparts in Moncton, Fredericton, Caden Peninsula, wherever, and ask them if they've experienced the same thing. And then we share that information so that we get more and more knowledgeable each time.
Awesome. Have you ever been in a situation where like accreditation has been an issue that you couldn't just solve it or give the client at least a clear path?
There's definitely been a few times where it hasn't been easy to get the information. So the clients called the association, or we called, the employment counselors called the association, and everything was very vague because even the associations might not know what they need to do. The associations say we need to have this, but they're not sure if you can get that. For example, if you get into the university has to recognize things through CLAR, or the community college does, which courses will they recognize and which will they not? So it's much clearer with the nursing program now, but it's not clear with every type of profession or career you can think of. So a lot of ways we're learning, but it's definitely an area that we all need to improve because we see it all the time, right? And you see it all the time. Like we have clients that come in with all kinds of skills and educational background, and they come here and they're told that it doesn't apply here. So what's next? So I think, like, for sure, WorkingNB is doing everything they can to get better at that. but it's definitely starts with having that conversation with an employment counselor, and then employment counselor will be totally honest with them and work with the client to try to figure out the answer.
Perfect. So if I understand this correctly, then if a client comes to you for either accreditation or as a job seeker, what you do, or what the employer counselor would do, is for accreditation, you will give the client the phone number maybe for this certain association to follow up, and you might also, or the employer counselor might follow up from his or her part as well. And the same thing for the job seeker, like you will give them the tools to look for the job. Like you're not going to do everything 100% for them, right? Like,
no, that's correct.
Teach them how to do it. You give them the tools and follow up, right?
Yeah, we're big believers in that. Teach somebody to fish, and they can fish for the rest of their life. And especially when it comes to career decision making, right? So we might know what the labor market is. We might know where the jobs are and where they're not. But ethically, we should never be telling a client what they should or shouldn't do with their career. Because we'll have people come in and talk to us about a career, and we'll think, oh, there's no jobs in that career. We know that. But that doesn't mean the person wouldn't be successful, because we all know that if you're good at selling yourself, if you're good at
if they're really passionate about it.
That's right. If you're passionate, you're good at selling yourself, you're at the right place at the right time, you're probably going to make it work, right? So employment counselors never say, Lena, you shouldn't do what you're doing right now. You should do this, because that's an individual decision. What we do is help you make that decision and know you're making the right decision by giving you the right tools to make a proper career decision.
I like that. Yeah, that's great. What other services you have that you guys can offer, like accreditation, employment, counseling, career decisions? Yeah.
So basically, employment counselors, we help people with four things. So we already talked about career decision making. We talked about jobs. Scansman we kind of touched on. That's if there's a skills gap, or you need to go back to school to get training. And training might be that you need to get your high school. Like high schools, we can help people go get their high school for free in New Brunswick. So you come see us, we can offer you some supports while you're getting your high school, or academic upgrading in order to get into a program at, say, NBCC or UNBSJ. So that's skill enhancement. And then the final thing we help people with is what's called job maintenance. And nobody really ever knows what job maintenance is, and nobody ever comes in here looking for job maintenance. But job maintenance is when you look at a resume and you see that, for example, the person's had 10 jobs a year. Well, that's a big red flag that something's going wrong that keeps turning them over and having to find new work. So those conversations about why did your last job, or what's made you kind of go from all these jobs over the past year. And a lot of times it's just something, you know, like it might be an anger issue. It could be anything, right? I mean, it could be not being socially awkward. It could be not knowing the proper way to respond when someone gives you criticism, things like that. So the employment counselor can help them be better prepared so that when they get their next job, they can hold on to it. But like I said, nobody ever comes in and says, I can't keep a job, can you help me? They usually come in looking for work, and that's when we look at their current resume or their past job experience, we see a red flag.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't know if people cannot keep a job they can go to, unless they cannot keep a job and they're looking for another job and they can't find one, then they think of you, but it's not like the idea of not able to keep a job.
People don't, probably just self-preservation, right? None of us sit there and say, oh, I suck at this, or I'm terrible at this, and you're coming out. Never, right? So it's an opportunity for us to say, why don't we look at why you keep losing a job and put you in a better spot so when you get this next job, you're going to thrive in it. So they're kind of the things we do on the employment counseling level. We already talked about, we call it experiential learning, like that workforce connections program with helping people attach themselves to employers. So we can do that like for recent graduates. We can do that if you're, like say you're a stay-at-home mom and you're not sure what you want to do. You're kind of thinking you'd like to work. Like for example, we had a person here a few weeks ago that would like to sort clothes. Believe it or not, that's what her goal was. I'd like to work someplace where I could just sort clothes. So we looked at being able to set her up with a workforce connections program to be able to work with an employer, sorting clothes as bags of clothes come in and setting them up. And she loves it, right? But it's things like that. So if we can help people move forward by offering experimental learning opportunities, we do that. So that's basically what employment counselors do. So sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah.
I was going to say, so workforce connection. So when you're talking about employers, or workforce consultants, sorry. So when we work with employers, like I said, we basically help them with what HRSS, which is Human Resources Support Services. Really, it's looking at, do they have an HR plan? Because a lot of the small businesses out there, the mom and pops, don't have, you know, an actual HR plan. So what happens when somebody calls in sick? How many sick days do they get? What's if they're not performing well? What are the performance measures that we need to put in place to correct that behavior or get them out the door at the end of the day if you have to fire or let them go? So we can help employers with those sorts of things. We can also help employers with their hiring needs and retention needs. So, for example, we hear from a lot of employers that say, I can't find people, I put ads out locally. Maybe it's as simple as tweaking their ads to look for skills that are on Job Match NB, for example. So that's an easier conversation.
To do the match.
Yeah, that's right. So if an employer comes to us and they've done everything right, they've put out good job postings, they've worked with the workforce consultant to kind of solve their hiring needs, and they're still not able to move forward, we can help them connect with the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Project. We can help them connect with immigration to look at bringing people in. We can also help them with, we do national and international job fairs. So if you look on nbjobs.ca, typically we'll have a section there on job fairs. And for example, we'll hold one in Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto. We'll go tell the people in those 3 large cities, hey, you should come to Saint John because we got much more room to move around in. We're pretty much COVID free except for 34 people. But
the quality of life is just different.
That's right. The quality of life is different. Come to Saint John and you're going to be able to buy a house for much cheaper. All those things, rent for much cheaper, So we hold those job fairs.
So almost like a population growth. Like I didn't know you do these kind of attraction for, you know, population. Yeah. That's great.
We do that in connection with ONB too. So Opportunities in Brunswick are a great partner of ours, and we work hand in hand with those folks every day. So yeah, with population growth, with the Atlantic Immigration Project, with ONB, we're all very much involved with it. In fact, before an employer can like go into the Atlantic Immigration Project, they have to prove that they've worked with a workforce consultant and that the HRSS assessment, so the Human Resources Support Services assessment that they do, shows that they need to look at hiring newcomers. So in the same way that an individual comes in and does an employability assessment, an employer will go through what we call an HR assessment. And if it shows that they need these supports, help them. Yeah. And then the other thing, see, you're going to have to stop me from babbling, Lena, because I can
No, go ahead. No.
So the other thing that we do is we don't suggest we have all the expertise when it comes to employers and with their HR issues. So sometimes if it's an issue that's something one of our HR consultants cannot help with, we can support the employer by hiring a consultant who can. So we can kind of help with some of the funding for them to hire a consultant to come in, develop an HR guide, things like that. So yeah, so there's a lot we can do with employers that.
That's great. When you do the attraction from other provinces or even outside Canada, I guess you do as well, right? Or is it just within Canada? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
So when you do these kind of attraction, like do you do it like strategically according to the talent needed here in the region, or like just any talent?
No, it's very much targeted. So for example, IT is a big one right now. So we're going to be targeting IT professionals. So part of that is our workforce consultants from all over the province have to reach out to all the employers in the IT sector, figure out exactly what their needs are and what skills they're looking for, so that when we put on these national or international job fairs, we can target those specific skills. That way we're not bringing people over that might not be right fits for the job or things like that. We're only targeting people with the right skills to get that job.
That makes sense, and actually, it makes sense. Also, it makes life easier for newcomers when they come here, that they know that there is a demand.
That's right.
Their talent and skills are needed, instead of coming here and then be surprised there is nothing for them, like you mentioned earlier, with all these skills and experience, and nothing is. They almost like have to start from ground zero, which is devastating for people.
That's right. Yeah. Especially like you said, you've got all the settlement activity they have to go through, which is hard enough. The cultural shocks, the leaving their home, all those type of things, and then to show up and find out that they can't work in the field they thought they were going to work in. I can't imagine how devastating it must be.
I know. You mentioned about the skills enhancement. If I get that correctly, about like if helping people if they don't have a high school degree, they want to go and get their high school. Like, do you guys do it yourself, or you just send to certain organization, like part of WorkingNB, or?
So WorkingNB funds a lot of what they call community access learning programs, so help programs, and they're spread out throughout the whole city. So depending on where the individual lives, we would make a referral to one of those programs, but it's all paid for through us, so there's no tuition for the client. Basically, they go, the help instructors will give them an assessment to see what levels they're at, and then kind of design a program that will help them get to the help levels they need to pass their GED. And
like, would you offer, it's not just the high school, also you mentioned earlier in our conversation about like NB, CC, and maybe UNB, I don't know, if there is a certain program I want to be enrolled in, but I can't afford it, I need help. You help with that as well, right?
Correct. Now there's stipulations around what programs we can help, but basically any program that leads to a degree or diploma where the client's going to be able to find work when they're done, right? So they have to be able to show us that there's employment opportunities, and the employment counselor guides them in the process of how to demonstrate that. But and the other thing is the program cannot be more than 2 years in length unless it's a 3-year co-op program that the college offers.
Okay.
So we can't do full 4-year university programs, but we do have a program called NBEI Connect, and you can just Google NBEI Connect and it'll bring up all the information about it. But it's it basically, if you qualify for EI and you go to school, our employment counselors can approve your EI while you're in school. So normally what happens is if you're in school, you'll answer the question, are you in training? You say yes. They say, good for you, we're canceling your EI. With this program, when you say I'm in training, they'll say good for you, and they'll keep your EI going until it naturally runs out. So we can't prolong it. We can't make it better than what it is, but at least you're able to collect EI if you're eligible for it.
Oh, okay. Is there any other financial support you do? Like, do you cover part of tuitions or anything like that for individuals?
Yeah, so if you're an individual and you qualify for a training skills and development program, we cover 50% of the tuition up to a maximum of $4,000. We cover 100% of the books, which sometimes are way more than the tuition these days.
I know.
We cover 50% of any specialized equipment or clothing up to $500. We can cover laptop fees, 50% up to, I think it's going to go up to $500 here shortly. We can help with childcare, after school childcare, transportation. Yeah, so there's a lot.
What are the requirements, Mike?
Basically, like what they're looking for is that there's a skills gap. So when you meet with the employment counselor, you do an employability assessment. If you don't have any training that can lead to work right away, then we would look at sending you back to school to get a career, right? So we talk to you about what your career choice is, why you want to be in that career. You would go out and talk to some employers in the field to make sure that you have a good understanding of what that field is. And we would support you as you go through NBCC or UNB or Eastern College or wherever it might be.
Oh, really? Even Eastern College? That's great.
Yeah, any school, as long as it's a recognized training institution. So it can't be, you know, Uncle Bob's going to teach me how to repair tractors in the back shed. But it's got to be a recognized training institution, and it's got to be able to lead to employment.
Would you ask for my financial history or my financial records?
No, we don't ask for anything like that. What we want to see is that if we're going to cover 50% of the tuition, you can cover the other 50%, and that you're going to be able to live on what we give you. We don't go through your books to make sure it all adds up. People are generally pretty honest, right? Well, I live on this and go to school. Then we can help you maybe find work or save some work so that you can save money to come back later. We can help you apply for student loans, all that sort of thing. But typically, yeah, all we really want to do is see that you're going to be able to make it through the school year based on the amount of money you're going to receive from us, student loans, or whatever the case might be. And it's easier, like for sure, it's easier in some of the schools where the tuition may say maybe $3,800. It gets more complicated if the tuitions are sometimes up as high as like $24,000 for like say police school or fireman training or things like that. So it becomes much more difficult for an individual to come up with all that money above $4,000 that we can give them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Since you take care of the employment part and job seekers and all that, how about entrepreneurs? Is it under your radar or?
Yes. So if somebody comes in and they're looking to start their own business, we have a program called the Self-Employment Benefit Program that our workforce consultants we make a referral, and there's some partners that we have that will help you put together a business plan, marketing plan. If you're on EI, you'll be able to keep your EI while you're going through this process. So there's things we can do to help you start your own business as well.
That's great. Do you see, did you see a higher need during COVID with this, more help or more questions in this regard?
Yeah, we're definitely seeing entrepreneurs. That stream has never really stopped. So there's always, that's good. I think it's, in fact, I was reading one statistic that more businesses opened in Uptown Saint John than closed during COVID. So that's awesome. But I think there's a strong entrepreneurial spirit in Saint John. And I think other business owners always encourage more business owners. And so there's a good mentoring system in place to help with that as well.
That's great. I guess, like, I didn't even know you have all these kind of services.
Like I said, we're our own worst enemy when it came to advertising what we do and our branding. So nobody really knew what we do in a lot of ways, right? So I think the good thing about where we're at now with our current government, with Minister Holder for sure, they've been super supportive with us being able to do a branding and getting what we do out to the community. And the great thing is that it all starts, like I said, with just having a conversation, whether you're an employer or an individual, have a conversation, and we will try to tailor-made an employment action plan that suits you, because it's not one size fits all. So for years, we were always guideline driven and policy driven. And really, like, the support from senior management all the way up has been awesome with regards to allowing us to be able to help people with the tools we have, but not holding everybody to the same standard, right? Not every round peg's going to fit through the square hole. So this allows us to tailor-make employment action plans. So
absolutely,
it's a great time to work for where we work for sure, because that's what employment counselors and workforce consultants have always wanted to do.
Especially, with our city now, the growing population, it's really great to see. And with growing population, there is a growing need with everything, not just employment, but employment is an important part. It's very vital for sure.
Absolutely.
So to see that help and support that you offer is absolutely amazing. It definitely makes our job easier as well.
No, so we will work with everybody, and we'll try our best to help at the end of the day. And if there's something we can't do, we'll be honest about it. But for sure, like, get in touch with us. And the best way to get in touch with us is go to WorkingNB.ca, and there's a list of all our offices and the contact information. Do that. So here in Saint John, basically you would call 643-6977, and our admin Melissa will get some information and assign you to an employment counselor.
Perfect. I was just going to ask you how people can reach out to you. You're ahead of the game.
You can always send me a direct email, Lena, and I'll hook them up too. So.
Absolutely, yeah. And honestly, you're great at replying to emails and clients and all that. That's great. And if you guys want, you can also reach out to me. I'll connect you with WorkingNB or with any of the employment counselors. I work with them on almost a daily basis. They send me all the time, like even job opportunities that I share with my clients. And I know lots of clients actually get employment through this way, which is perfect, as long as we can help. And that's why we're all here, just to help each other. And the whole
do not have to do it alone, right? So we need,
absolutely, no, we
all
can't.
need to work together. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, that was absolutely great interview. I learned a lot. It's great information, Mike. Thank you as usual. You're always so patient and passionate.
So I'll see you next year.
Really?
We'll do number 3.
No, I hope to see you before that. But hopefully next time we see each other, do you think there will be no COVID? I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It'd be nice if, we could actually get in the same room again.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. I remember last time we met in person with the WorkingNB team. The next day, the whole city. Remember, the whole city shut down in March. We had a meeting. You guys were the last meeting in person we did at our center, and then it all collapsed. So hopefully, you're going to be our first meeting going back to the office in person.
Sounds good. I'll hold you to it.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you. And thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you have any questions, just send it along, and have a wonderful day.
Same to you. Take care.
The Saint John Newcomers Centre is proudly supported by the City of Saint John, the Government of New Brunswick, and Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada.